I'm John. I think before we get into the story I wanted to share, I should go into a little bit of my background. I think it'll help make the story make more sense. I'm 58. When I was about the first 50 years of my life, I was an atheist. And I was what I would call a real atheist. Um, what I mean by that is when you're an atheist, there's really two categories of atheists. You get one group that views God and the idea of the supernatural and things like that as just a joke. It's not real. It's just sort of leftover. I don't know, primitive tribalism, things like that, where there's no good evidence, there's no good rational type of argument for God. If you look at a lot of the arguments in God's favor, they're just cosmological arguments, things like that. I wasn't the type of atheist that hates God. That's the other type of atheist, an atheist who, I suppose, rationally in between their ears, they think they don't believe in God, but they really do, and they hate him. Probably 80% of atheists fall into that category where they're just not that honest intellectually. At least when I was an atheist, I didn't find them to be very intellectually honest. But as an atheist, I would get engaged in conversations with Christians a lot. Never really at my instigation. It was usually people would start talking about it, and I would just admit to being an atheist, and it was game on, and people would pile on, and there was no animosity, but I didn't believe in the great sky daddy. I don't really know how to explain it past that, but that was the type of atheist I was. It was like a cartoon to me. I didn't feel about God in one way or the other. How could you be angry with something that is imaginary? It doesn't make any sense. But if you watch a lot of atheists who are just very angry atheists, you come to realize that even though intellectually they may not know that they believe in God, emotionally you can see it come out. And even when I was an atheist, I saw that. One day I was on Prager University's website, and there was a video on there by a gentleman, I believe his name is Kreeft, but he challenged you. If you're watching this video, he said, if you're an atheist and you're watching this video, I'd challenge you to think about, if you're honest, and you say this prayer to God, and if you're sincere, he said, I promise you God will not ignore that prayer. And he was right. I said that prayer, and that was, in my mind, that was really the beginning of when things started to change and they got really weird. Things just started to happen, and you look at them and you say, well, it's not necessarily supernatural. It could have happened because of this, or it could have happened because of that. My background is analytics. I spent 30 some years doing what today is called data science, but doing analysis, and I'm looking at my situation and these things that are occurring, and just trying to use reason to piece together how they could happen in a way that excluded the existence of God. And it just got harder and harder and harder, because that God knew exactly how he had to come at me, and that was it. He came at me through the irrational, he came at me through the supernatural, and it just got to the point I couldn't deny it anymore. It was, what I want to talk about today is the feather that broke the camel's back. It stands out in my mind. It was a very powerful experience, but it's the one that had happened in a sequence that just put me over the top. So enough of my background. The event began with I'd gotten married, and 2 weeks after the wedding, my wife went to the doctor and she had a lump in her breast, and unbeknownst to us at the time, she was already stage 4 with breast cancer. And we spent the next 2 years on this journey of discovering Christ. And she had a good amount of time to be able to reach out to friends and family that she hadn't seen in years, and reconnect with them, and really do a lot of the things that she wanted to do before she passed. One of the things that she did, a little minor thing, but it turned out to be this event, was she got together with her cousins with their children, and everybody went to Dorney Park. And it was just the moms, and all the moms went, and everybody had a great time. They were there all day, and she came home, and I could hear her rummaging around the house, and she couldn't find her purse. She was looking for her purse. And so I went out and I started helping her. I could hear her expressing her dissatisfaction and not being able to find it. So we're looking around, and we're looking at all the different spots, and it's nowhere where you think it would be. And she'd called the park, but she remembered having it in the car with her on the way back, so we're pretty sure it wasn't at the park. But we called anyway, called the cousins, and no one had seen her purse. So we're looking, pretty sure it's in the house, and look, we're in the garage or in the car or somewhere, and we're looking and looking, and we looked for an hour maybe, and couldn't find it. And when you lose something and you start looking, and you get to the point where you're just looking in all these ridiculous places where it could not possibly be, but when you've checked the possible, start looking for the impossible. So I don't know how the purse could have got behind the refrigerator, but I pulled the refrigerator out and looked, because maybe it fell back there somehow. I don't know. So we're looking, and the problem with this entire process was, based on the medications that she was on and how her disease had progressed, we were really trying to maintain a low stress level for her throughout the day, and she was getting pretty upset. And when you lose, like for a man, if you lose your wallet, woman, you lose your purse, there's so many things inside of it. It creates a lot of just undue stress on your life to replace all these things. And it was a challenge. Plus, it was a purse that was special to her, and all these things. She was becoming very upset. Man, I was looking hard for that purse I really wanted to find, but I couldn't find it. I'm in her closet for like the 100th time, looking through, everything in her closet. And I just stopped, and I thought, God, please, if you could just help us, we could really use one. And I just asked God, I said, please help us. And 5 seconds after I said that prayer, that purse was in my hand. I said that prayer, bang, I knew where that purse was. I just knew. I knew where it was. Just like I know my Bible sitting there. I knew where it was. I have no idea how I knew, but that was sort of the feather that broke the camel's back. Because I'd had some experiences like that before, and I thought it's impossible for me to have had this information, but I got it. And this one, it had all just kind of come together, and I just said, God, I give up. I give up. I surrender. And I knew it was all real. It was all real. Jesus is King. And now I know.